Everybody say hi to Mr. Doc, aka D.O.C.
Hello.
Evening.
So when me and Dr. Renee was talking about inclusive workplace models and in business, and what goes on in business world, I didn't know I was gonna be able to get Doc. So I'm thankful, thank the Almighty for that.
Thank you.
But we got Doc here, and the reason why to me that's important because hip hop is more to me one of the most inclusive and diverse workforces anybody could be in. And when you want to talk about somebody who excelled at it, this guy right here, I'm pretty sure everybody has heard of NWA and Dr. Dre and Ice Cube and Eazy-E. This guy right here is a crucial, what I'm saying, piece to that whole puzzle. I mean,
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
So, when you think about Snoop Dogg, when you think about Eminem, when you think about Kendrick Lamar, all of these rappers that come from that, D.O.C. was instrumental in grooming these talents and seeing these talents grow to the top of the heights where he has already been. So if you've listened to No One Could Do It Better, which is one of my favorite hip hop albums of all time, lyrically, just thought provoking, just very articulate. That is a template, So when me and Dr. Renee was talking about leadership and inclusivity, to me, D.O.C. was a leader because, when NWA was out and they was really, really, a lot of explicit language, when he made his album, it was completely different. And guess what? He still sold millions of records. And when his man Dr. Dre went on and moved on to create something brand new that changed the landscape of hip hop with Death Row Records, he was like the general manager of that. I mean, then to Aftermath, then to what he's doing now. I mean, so it can go on and on. Because I followed his career like that, so I can go on and on about what I know as a fan. But just on the business side of that, he saw all of that too. So he was able to, I'm sure, network with different cultures, different races, different ethnicities, and still be somebody that's, to take the hip hop culture to the next level. From, you listen to artists like up in the Midwest, people like the Bratton sampled his records, Gone But Never Forgotten, another one of my favorite artists, MC Breed. He worked closely with him. So enough about what I know as a fan. I mean, we're going to talk about business and diversity and inclusivity. With chapter 11, chapter 17, if you read those chapters, then I want you to kind of, just use this time with Mr. D.O.C. as a chance to get more information about what he's seen in his travels, traveling the world, networking and just seeing different cultures, seeing different ethnicities and how they work together, and how he was able to balance all of that and still stay true to himself.
Why don't you start out, this is Renee, why don't you start out talking about how did you make inclusive workplaces or inclusive leadership work? Because sometimes I think that in spots that I've listened to, we got a long ways to go.
Inclusive leadership.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something that I know a whole lot about. I just work within the scope of music, putting the right people in the right positions. Doesn't really matter, who it is. It's just who does the job the best.
You find then that sets the tone?
Yes.
When you start bringing people in, because then you are really embracing everybody by their talents.
That's it. That's it. That's how you make the best soup, is with the best ingredients. And the best way to be inclusive to me is just include the best you can get. You know what I mean? but that said, there are societal things that we'd love to adhere to when you use that kind of terminology. But for me, at least as far as music goes, you just want the best ingredients.
I would agree that I think entertainment has been out in front, where maybe we need to take a look at some of the stories and some of how you've gone about it to learn from it to change other places.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of, it could have been, what it was amazing, as opposed to what it could have been if we had all taken certain steps. But what it was fantastic. It's still going today. You know what I mean? It's like exactly the energy really hasn't changed that much in 35 years.
You think entertainment is ahead of some of the other cultures and how they embrace people, or what do you think that has happened?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, but that again is something not really that's not really my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? Like uh, I don't base being right on being cultural. You know what I mean? I just
Hmm.
want to be right when I do something that I'm involved with. I want it to be right. But a lot of times, being right is being is being just. Babe, can you close that door? Okay. See, that's what happens when you're married. But
Yeah.
sometimes being right is being right on the outside is just about being right on the inside, and those kind of things will find their way to you, and you'll do the right thing. But in the world that we live in, uh, the fact that you have to really be talking about it like this just says so much.
Yeah, it does, because sometimes we have a lot to learn from each other.
Yeah,
And sometimes we forgot about the commonalities. And you're correct. I think that right thing to do sometimes doesn't always come across. And maybe that's where you begin when you start to look at how do we embrace, how do we change? And you talk about bringing people in by strengths.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like
And so it's a very conscious, proactive effort, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want it to work, you know what I mean? Like idealistically, it'll just flow. You know what I mean? But even that, you know what I mean? If you want it to work, you have to be conscious on some level of what you're using.
You've done a lot of travel. Do you find that there are differences when you travel
Absolutely.
in what makes it work and what doesn't?
Inclusiveness, you mean worldwide?
Yeah.
I don't know a whole lot about that. I mean, I've traveled a lot, but my circle is really small. I only travel when it's for work purposes, and really I'm trying to base all my outside efforts on in the community, you know what I mean, and sort of bringing some inclusion to the parts of the community that don't get as much light, you know what I mean, bringing a different kind of element to those areas, and building up from the inside.
Yeah, that makes sense. Questions, anyone? Jump in on your thoughts.
My question is, what was your first project, and at what point did you feel like you were famous?
My first project was in 1986. I made it in the garage in Dallas, and I thought I was famous then. Uh, but you know, didn't the other part didn't kick in until about a year and a half later after that record. And since we're on there talking about business, I wish I'd have been thinking about my business rather than thinking of being famous, because it cost me a lot of time. You know what I mean? So the fact that you are in this discussion talking about business is super positive, and I applaud you. If so, the conversation is inclusivity and business. And so I imagine that the students, all the people online here are in some shape or form interested in business, and from a musical perspective, or just business in general, and how to be better leaders, or yeah, better leaders. Then yeah, the whole key is to be mindful about yourself. That's the best way to be a good leader, is not watching other folks. It's watching yourself, right? And concentrate on doing the right thing, and the money will come to you. Because if you're smart, you got good ideas, 6 degrees of separation, you connected somehow. It can come to you, no question about it. But you got to be the best you could be to really draw it to you. Sorry, that was just my humble opinion.
That was a great opinion. So come on now, students. We got a multi-platinum selling artist here. Got some questions. We need some participation. Don't get scared. Doc is about as down to earth as it get.
I have a question. So, was there ever a time in your career where you felt excluded, and how did you overcome that, being the leader that you are?
Good question. Because there absolutely was a point in my journey where I felt excluded, because I wasn't from the same place as everybody was that were all succeeding at the time we were succeeding. So it felt a little different for me, but I was really good, you know what I mean? So I was the best I could be. It allowed me to just concentrate on what I was doing, and they respected it, But yeah, that's a good question, because you feel that way in really in life, whatever you're trying to do, because the world is big and bad out there. But if you focused on what it is you're trying to do, knowing that you're good at it, then you'll be good.
I like that you went back to what your whole thing is about, watching yourself and basically doing the right thing. And even back then, you were still, preaching and going by your word pretty much.
Yeah, man. I mean, really, that's really all you got. Once you break that, then your business is broke.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. What's your name?
Anita.
Anita, thank you for the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you know when an artist have that it factor, that that they may be famous, may become famous?
Sometimes you just know. I don't know. That's a good question. You know what I mean? But it's definitely a it. It's a it, and you can tell when someone got that it, what that spark is. I don't know. You know what I mean? And how that manifests itself in business, I guess, is that idea that you have that's just the one. You know what I mean?
How did Dr. Dre know that you had it? How did Eazy-E and them know you not even, you coming from Dallas? How they know that they was going to invest their time and resources into you, and knew that they was going to be profitable in doing such?
Some stuff is just Ah, some stuff is too easy, bro. You don't. Yeah, it was already understood. It didn't have to be said. We just moved to part two. You know what I'm saying? And that was building Easy's company, Ruthless. Any good business is gonna take 2 or 3 really sharp people all pushing towards the same thing, And when you're building a business, if you can find somebody that's in a similar vein, come together and build, but it's difficult, but it's so easy when all 3 people are equally talented and pushing the same way. Because like as an artist, it's a spiritual thing to me.
Okay, I've got something.
Okay.
All things being equal, like if your group or your producers or several different options for a certain talent, what was the best way to entice them to you guys? How did you further incentivize if, somebody that's talented has 3 or 4 options on who they want to work with or be produced by or something like that? How were you best able to motivate them to come your way?
Well, for me personally, and the journey that I took, that's pretty easy. They wanted to work with Dre, and the guy's a sick maniac, you know what I mean? Like he's really good, and so I think 99.9% of the time that was it. But in that circle of 4 or 5 people that I was talking about earlier that must work together, everybody's honest and everybody has a stake in me, meaning we love what we're doing, not just what we're gonna get from it. You know what I mean? And so I would think just being in that kind of environment would make somebody that was really talented be like, I think I can mess with this.
So it goes back to the culture
Absolutely.
of the group.
Absolutely.
We're having a hard time recruiting and filling positions at my manufacturing plant. I work in HR, and we're competing, everybody's got kind of the same pay or benefits, so we're trying to figure out the best way to get people to want to come to us over other people. And I think you're right. I'm gonna keep pushing for a comfortable, active culture, I guess.
Within the workspace itself, you mean?
Yeah, or the company itself.
Yeah. More money is always good, If you can find more money somewhere, boy, that always motivates them.
Definitely money and second food, I find. Keep them fed.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
No, thank you.
Hey, Doc, one of the things that you brought up, and that kind of goes back to Jamie's question, I think that you look at how do we draw people to us that are different than we are? Because I think that really is a challenge. We were talking up a couple of weeks ago, and one of the guys that was on that particular one, and it kind of struck me because he is a maintenance supervisor and he was mentoring a woman to come in or come up. And I wonder how you draw people to you so that we do provide opportunities to people. Because what she talks about, yeah, I sometimes wonder, how do you find these people that aren't as confident, that just aren't out there? Because to me, sometimes we miss the talent. Do you ever find that? Or did you find that it because you drew them to you? Were they the same as you? Were they different as you? That you drew people by strengths? What did you find?
It's a great question. I can't tell you what, like I was saying before, it's always finding the best pieces. What draws them to you? I don't know, but when they show up, you kind of, like the lady asked before, how do you know what the it is? You kind of see, oh, okay, that, and it might be this and this, but you only need this. I mean, and you don't want to not include that, but you have to include it in a different way, because in what you're trying to build, you only need this.
That makes sense.
So, but if inclusion is the idea, you can always do that. But whatever you're doing, do it right.
And I like what Doc said earlier. He said it's spiritual. You know, you feel that spiritual connection no matter what entity it is, whether it's business or manufacturing company or entertainment. You gotta have some spiritual cohesiveness, like-mindedness, you know, to really put forth the effort. Like with Craig Clifton Inc., you know, I got Veronica and I got Brian and Tony, and we really, really close, and we really want to do what's best for the community. We always think in ways, even if we don't agree with everything, we still kind of know what we want to do for the community. We know what'll work once we put our blood, sweat, and energy into the community. And I feel like that put us ahead of organizations that are really well funded, more funded than us, more anything. We show up and we put our cohesiveness feel like $1 million, you know, when we helping kids out or we delivering things on Christmas, and we thinking of ideas that other organizations may not have thought of yet.
I get that energy. That's why I rock with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, so like Doc said, you know, if he didn't like my energy, no, I'm not coming to this classroom. I mean, but he know that, you know, my spirit is real, you know, and I take that everywhere I go. So whether that's a job interview, whether that's a community, whether that's getting myself up out of a jam, you know, I know how to just be honest about what my intention was at the time, right or wrong, you know. So I feel like those are what organizations are made of, and what leadership is about: being accountable, being, you know,
being accountable,
responsible for your actions,
being counted on, being accountable, you know, being responsible, you know, at some point, you got to do that.
So how do you find the right balance of being true to yourself and maybe having a cohesiveness and unity within your group, but then also, 'cause sometimes being with like-minded people is needed, but then also when it comes to terms of inclusivity, having other people that think differently than you. A lot of times it's easy to get along with people who think like us and who are on the same wavelengths, but sometimes different experiences and just where other people come from. And I think that's why inclusivity is so important, because the way that I look at things may not be the same way that Josh will look at it, or Amanda, you know, so maybe my upbringing will tell me to do something a certain way, and then Amanda's upbringing will tell her to do something a totally different way. How do you bring both of our ideas together, even though we're different, and make them cohesive and still, you know, have unity? Because I think that it's good to have that, but how do you get everybody on the same page, but with different, in terms of innovation, maybe is what I'm saying, like to come up with new ideas, if everybody's different.
No, I get it. And it's absolutely needed and necessary to go forward. How do you do it? Come together without judgment about the other person's whatever. You know, it just is what it is. And if you're working as a team, what works best for the project as a whole going forward? You take all the personal out of it. You know, like for us, when you're making a record, it's just the person that wrote the best line. That's who gets the line. It's not we. You know, we love each other, We just want to make what we're doing as a team the best. And we all think similarly, but way different. You know, it's individuals is what make the shit cool. You know what I mean? And nobody, we may think similar to one another, but you're right. What the way she thinks ain't gonna be the way her mind works. And you know what I mean? So as long as you stay true to you and where you're going and what you're doing, because the person you think you're with today may not be the person you're gonna be with when it pop. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta keep focused on you and what you're doing. And as long as you're the best you and you stay creative, the money is coming. The win is coming. And
So how do you, like, especially in the music industry with something that's like with culture like that, it's either a lot of times, you stick to what you know, and if it's not broken, then don't fix it. But innovation can be scary. So if you're talking about Dre and you bringing somebody in like Eminem, at first maybe the culture is like, who is this? We don't accept this. Like, this is not what we do here. How do you stay true to yourself, but then still leave room for creativity and innovation for new possibilities to a culture that's not always accepting to new things?
that's the perfect question or perfect example of an answer to the question you asked. You know what I mean? How do you do it? You do it like when I was at Dre's house, and he said, I got something I want you to hear. And he played a record on this kid, and the record was called, and you'll excuse my English, I Just Don't Give a Fuck, right? And so I hear the record, and I'm like, holy, this dude is a sick genius, you know what I mean? And so Dre shows me a picture of this guy, and I was like, what the? My first thought was, Dre, you did it again. See, it really wasn't about the dude's skin tone. Yes, it was a bona fide plus. It gave him a booster rocket in his pocket where he could just move. But the talent of each of those individuals as individuals, when you put them together, made a snowball that was cold as hell, right? By themselves, they were really good. Together, they became something else. And then from that, and that was the business right there. Dre's done it 1,000 times with, that's why it always goes back to that guy, but I learned a lot from him. You know what I mean? Simple is always best. Straight, stay true to you and your ideas, and what's meant to come to you is gonna come.
Just the hip
You
hop
sound like
fan
you're
in me gotta add that D.O.C. you was the first prototype though, because it was you, then Snoop Dogg, then Eminem, then Kendrick Lamar. So you was the model, the proven model that what Drake could do with talent.
No question about that. Easy was the
You're
first.
right. You're right.
And Q,
Easy was the first. Easy
yeah,
was the first.
Q was the first. But through Easy, and then so Easy was the first, and then we all came in and shut it down. As a team of young men, just like today. You know what I mean? They do it all day today. And it's young guys out there making huge amounts of money and doing really positive things for their family through this music. And so and ideas that came from this music, like clothes, and so it's all kind of ideas out there that you can, if you vested in this culture, you can do, bring to the table and get something positive out of it, or putting something positive in it.
Facts.
Okay, tell me this. Craig Clifton Inc. Now we do, a Milwaukee Got Talent, and we scout Milwaukee for, talent, whether it's rap, singing, playing an instrument, spoken words. How would a person, an artist, reach you?
You talking to me now? So
Yeah.
I couldn't have told you last week to do this. So you know, if you're true to what you're doing, because I got people in Milwaukee. I got Khalif Rain is a really good friend of mine. And so if you're doing something in Milwaukee and it resonates, it'll find me.
So you create networks.
Absolutely. You know what I
But
mean?
you're also very open, because even when you were talking before about listening to somebody, you're very open to ideas outside yourself. And I wonder if some of these are the clues that we got to start watching for to embrace people differently or better, or so that we do build a better. Is maybe it does come down to more listening, better listening, because you were talking about that when you were listening. Because does that go back to that, as Craig was talking about, that spiritual connection, but you can connect with somebody when you listen to them?
Well, for me, it just goes back to being the best me in every moment. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna win that battle all the time, but you know, if you try, you know, and so I try to get out of the bags and just move in my best space in myself and in my community and try to do something with some of the blessings that they gave me. Now that train of thinking is new to me, really. You know what I mean? Like I spent a lot of time thinking about what the past was and how to rectify the past. I couldn't move forward. So maybe to put it in business terms, my old business had died, but I was still trying to make it work. If you're going through old ideas over and over again, and it don't really seem to kick off, maybe it's time to have a new idea, a better idea. And so this new approach for me is a better idea.
Makes sense. I think a lot of times we look at that, either the conditions change, the criteria changes, something changes, and you think that it would have worked, but it doesn't because something else changed. And maybe it is that openness.
So it's the perspective. Your perspective has to,
Ah, that makes sense.
the perspective has to change. You know, you're looking at a picture a certain way, you should turn it upside down.
But I wonder if that's something we haven't done well in our communities.
Yeah, man.
I got one for you. By the way, Doc, I'm a huge fan. I'm old enough to have bought NWA tapes on tape, like the little electronic things, and hid them under my mattress as a kid. But so you said you traveled, quite a bit for work. I've lived on both coasts. Kind of lived all over. And one thing that you guys were kind of talking about is that that kind of all getting together and everybody accepting each other and forming that one mind in order to generate good ideas. I can say that the West Coast does a pretty good job of it. In some places in California that I lived, that they're just everybody's in sync, and you walk into a room and they instantly accept you. In the Midwest, I think we're a little bit behind. I work for the city of Madison, so I'm in the capital city, Wisconsin here. I work for the government, and we're wrestling with our need to do better. Our need to be more open and more accommodating to people, and try to get everybody in the same room and really start eliciting some meaningful change. So I am all ears and open for advice, because you guys are doing well out there.
For me, it almost always goes back to the individual. You have to be open and honest with yourself. And if it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. You know what I mean? If you live by that code, then generally you'll be in a good space. Now, bad things are going to happen around you, but you can't stop that. All you can really have any kind of real control over is you. You know what I mean? How does that reflect in business? the opportunities for some of us aren't ever going to be as good for opportunities as others, you know. And that's a night that cuts two ways, you know. So the idea is not to suffer behind that fact, but to figure out a way to beat it. And maybe that community is the way you beat it. You know what I mean? You build more of those kind of connections where in some kind of really good business venture, you're doing it with somebody else that you feel like you can trust, that don't look like you. You know what I mean? Like Jerry and Easy.
As a supervisor and a manager, I try, you know, I have employees and I can control them. I can tell them what to do. That's one benefit of the boss, right? Is put them in environments that they're uncomfortable. You know, make them talk to people that they don't look like, you know, and at least change a little bit of that. But yeah,
But that's interesting that you pushing the line like that.
somebody's got to, man.
Yeah, man.
Because what's going on right now isn't okay.
I dig that. You know, I just hope that it happens more that that people just start trying to figure out how to do the right thing. You know what I mean? It's so easy. Everybody can have. It's enough.
What's not easy is you got to take like somebody who's totally in their comfort zone and likes their life and is so happy and they think everything's totally perfect.
Yeah.
And you got to stir that up a little bit.
Yeah.
And kick it back out, and that isn't always easy.
But maybe that is what it takes, because you know, maybe you're right. Maybe it is that we all have to let ourselves be vulnerable. Because if we're not letting ourselves be vulnerable, we'll never change. And I do agree that there are people that love to play it safe.
Absolutely.
But yet, if you don't keep asking questions, if you don't keep listening for different answers, because I found sometimes with different cultures, I got to come back with more questions. Because you know what? Otherwise, I jumped too quick and I made a decision and it really wasn't what you meant. You can have a low context in language. You know what? You're not going to tell me right out straight how it's going to be. I got to figure that piece out. And so I always have to ask myself, you know, so how many questions did you really ask? Because sometimes I find that I probably didn't hit it right. And maybe that's where we have to do things a little bit differently.
And not only that too, I think too, maybe listening more. Sometimes, and it's hard because when you think about it as being empathetic, like you trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes or feel that the way they feel. But I know that sometimes people don't want to be bombarded with questions. And it's like, well, how do I listen more to maybe just who they are or what they, you know, what their experience is, and then let them tell me on their own terms. But I think just a lot of times when we step outside of our comfort zone to know somebody, I think it's probably the idea of being wrong about who we thought that they were. And it's like, well, I thought this person was this way, and nobody wants to be wrong. You know, it's like, oh, well, you know, if you letting down your guards, and it's like, wow, this person can do my job better than me, and I thought they weren't as good as I was, you know. So it's maybe that factor of being wrong about stereotypes and things like that. But I don't know. I think just being accepted. I know Josh mentioned about the West Coast and the Midwest, and it's much more segregated. So I feel like here we have to get over that big, huge part of it. So it's not a melting pot. Sometimes you're forced into knowing somebody or having to experience certain things about them because you have no choice. So you see, you know, you can go into a diverse neighborhood and, you know, they may have the same job opportunities as you do, but in the Midwest, I know especially where I live, it's very segregated. It's very, very segregated. And so
I
it's
get
kind of
it.
like you stay in your place. And
No,
so
no, I
how
get
do you
it.
find inclusivity in that when, like, for instance, if I was to say I want to um give me a beauty supply store, I feel like a lot of the people in my community, they fraternize um stores that sell hair products, but the people don't look like them. So if I wanted to infiltrate that type of corporation, it's very hard. And I know people that have tried, and the people that are within that community, um, they don't tell you vendors, they don't share information with you because you're the buyer. I mean, you're the seller. They don't want the roles reversed. So they make it very, very hard for you to gain access to their networks. And that's just the way it is. So, just trying to find ways to be inclusive when some people are just hell bent on you staying in your place. I think I don't know. I think that's just the hardest thing that most business owners that are minorities, women, people of color, whatever. I find that's like one of the hardest things they have problems with in the Midwest.
Mhm.
I think that was very well said, and I understand 1000%.
Mhm.
I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm 52 years old, so I've seen and heard a lot of stuff, and to be 1000 with you, that's really the crux of the whole deal. You know, you never reconcile that. So everything that exists in this reality that we live in now, USA, is permeated with that. It's everywhere. You can't miss it. No matter what color you are, that idea is a mind screw to you.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's a question I don't know the answer to, but the fact that there are these types of discussions going on just amongst regular folks about how we gonna fix this thing is saying a whole lot to me. I mean, so maybe that's what God wanted me to see today by jumping on this line with y'all.
Mhm.
That is some folks out there that really want to have the conversation and figure something out. Because truth be told, all of you in the same bucket. You know what I mean? The ones that don't like each other from this side and that side based on race, and everybody's eating mayonnaise sandwiches. You're the same team. You're the same team. You just don't know it. And if you was on the same team, the whole world would change. But the others are so connected to that tribal thing, and I get it. You know, it's so connected to that, it's hard for them to let that go.
And that's something else. And that's why I wanted to bring it to the university level. That's why when me and Dr. Sertic was making plans on how to create something like this that could be impactful in the community as well as at an academic level. This is
I
this is
get it.
what's formulating out of this.
It's
And
very cool.
thank you, sir. And then just the fact that in music, they ain't really having these kind of conversations. So we got to have them at this level now. We got to create something, out of nothing, because back in the day when I was listening to NWA, Public Enemy, X Clan, you know what I'm saying, and Brand Nubian and groups like that had a real conscious, and they was trying to have that conversation over the music. And
Yeah,
it's like now that's not, it seemed like it's an unwritten rule or something going on that you can't really make conscious music. Kendrick Lamar do it, J. Cole do it, but that's like 2 out of the next 50, so
yeah.
now.
I think the way that we have defined conscious music in the past should change, should morph. You know what I mean? The way we have felt about it in the past has got to arm itself, you know, for the fight, for lack of a better way of putting it. You know, ideas are still the same, but by any means necessary is a cold way to be. You know what I mean? And when it comes down to that, when it gets to that point, you know, so you can always say, damn, but man, if you did that, that would be what that is. But look, I appreciate you for inviting me out. I gotta go in there. My wife is probably mad, so you know I'm gonna go deal with that. But God bless everybody for showing out. It was really nice meeting you and having this conversation.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
The little
God
dot,
bless.
man.
Thank you.
Continue
God
success,
bless,
man.
guys.
Have a good evening.
Success. And thanks for taking time out.
All right.
Peace out. So there you have it, group. You heard it from a entertainer, a global person with some global experience, some global interaction. And then just looking at that model piece, you know, it's the entertainment world is one model, you know, that we can look at and say, man, the entertainment world is so much, you know. You got different types of music, you got different types of sounds, different types of styles, and different types of cultures, from movies to music to, you know, whatever. It's just comedy. You know, we could have picked all different types of models, and then you can look at, you know, businesses such as, you know, Josh working in government, or you know, me in telecommunications, or you know, Dr. Surdick in education. I mean, there's so many different. That's just one particular model that I looked at, and I said, you know what? Anybody in that anybody who has been successful in the entertainment business, they've seen and done a lot. So I just like the fact that he was able to give some business insight on, you know, like when you want to put a company together, how when they put their company together, you know, they worked together. They didn't, you know, like you said, they came at it as a cohesive group. It wasn't one person over the other. They knew Dr. Dre was the man. So, you know, they accepted their role. So when you look at a business model, when you look at a company, it goes back to what I was talking about, the book I read from Jim Collins, Good to Great. You want to put the right people in the right seats. Who else? I heard we talked to Josh, he chimed in. Alyssa. What up, Alyssa? What you take from, what's some stuff you got from tonight?
I like that he just focused on be true to yourself and just be your best self, make good decisions, and be, you know, represent yourself and everything like that. Because I think, I don't know, I just like that. I thought he was really, really great to listen to.
Yeah. Kate, you want to share some thoughts on?
Yeah. I really like the part where he was talking about the importance of being honest, and working together for the same common goal, and being accountable and counted on. That really stuck out to me.
Yeah, Amanda, what about the inclusivity and diverse part of it? What's some stuff you take away or want to add on to with that?
Yeah, I think something that I could have probably asked is, I think, you know, as a leader, we make decisions that not everybody agrees with, right? So, and, you know, you think about the type of music that he writes, there's a lot of people who don't agree with that type of music, and there's a lot of people who don't like that type of music. And so I think that kind of correlating it that way, because obviously he's writing that music because he's passionate about it. He talks about, you know, being spiritual. That's what he enjoys doing. And as leaders, when you're making decisions, you should hopefully be standing behind your decisions, right? So I think that's kind of an interesting correlation that definitely could have been made in the leadership aspect.
But Melissa, what's your take on this discussion?
Yeah, I really agree with what Alyssa said. I like how we kept him talking about how you can be kind of a better version of yourself. I also really like how he talked about like some of the best pieces coming together. And I guess the only like question that I would have had for him was like if he's ever seen some of the best people excluded just because of their differences, and if he thinks that will ever be a thing that we get past, or if that will ever stop happening. So that was the only thing I really had. But yeah, I agree with what Alyssa said. I liked that he just continued talking about you being the best version of yourself, and that's what we can do. So,
And that'll create a inclusive workspace because you are an inclusive, welcoming person. What about Miss Zong? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, my name is Ku. I think that with the gut feeling, sometimes you just know it. That person is it person kind of thing. But I guess the only question I kind of came up with is we are all trying to be leaders here. If you're coming into a workplace that has everything set in stone, how are you? And then as an entry level leader, how do you find ways to still be inclusive and be heard from people who's been there for so long? I feel like sometimes you're scared, you're intimidated by trying to kind of point out, oh, you guys did this, I think that's wrong. But like how he says that if you know you're right, you should just say it, or you should just do it because you have that gut feeling. So I think that's the only thing that people, we come into a new workplace and you notice something is wrong. You have that gut feeling, but how do you say it? No, being intimidated by the like the people who's been there, and I don't know, does it make sense?
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, but now is the time for us to reflect and say, how do we lead in our? He gave examples of what he did in his leadership role. It was more spiritual. What in your field, in the business that you are in, how do you be able to speak out in a professional way where it's accepted by the organization and not not getting a lot of pushback?
Well, I think that's something that I still have to discover myself, because being a recent graduate from an associate degree, and you're dealing with people who's been in the professional area for so long, you're kind of, that's what I'm feeling is like, okay, I want to say something, but I feel like my knowledge or my idea, my perspective might not be understood the same.
If I could, Ku, I know exactly what you mean. I started with an associate degree, and I know it sounds kind of silly, but just starting out, I honestly asked, after going through the handbook and how suggestions or comments are maybe made, I asked upper management what the best avenue or route is to make suggestions or to question current policies or current rules. I honestly just asked how they would like to receive that, because that way I felt better about challenging the status quo, I guess. Is just I asked, well, how exactly do you want to hear that? Or how is the best way to make a suggestion? Or how is the best way to get suggestions from other employees? Because I love doing climate surveys, and I love doing different department and kind of different surveys. And I just kind of started by asking upper management the simplest way or how they want to hear it. And that's kind of how I segued around feelings of inadequacy or not thinking like I have enough experience to offer my part.
Did it work?
Yeah, actually, we already had somewhat of there's a suggestion box on the production floor, and then there's also different parts of the office, both, open door policies or written memos or anonymous even, because some people feel best if they want to suggest something anonymously, and there are a couple different ways to do that, and that's kind of worked out. You can leave something as silly as, oh, I think this would be great in the bathroom, or you could leave something a bit more serious, like, I think we have a problem with this process, or I think this rule or policy is discriminatory. Anything of that nature. We get tons of different ideas and suggestions from a lot of different people of all walks of life, and I think it's interesting just by asking people their opinion, and they can make it anonymous or not.
It's a good way, though, to reach out. I have to tell you, too, there's been a lot of times in my life when I didn't feel empowered, and it was just because I didn't take the actions and move something forward. I didn't realize that I had enough, if you want to call it latitude, but I didn't. I think that, and sometimes when I've been the most frustrated, it's because I didn't feel as though that I had any power. In reality, I wasn't taking it. And I needed to become more assertive and push. And I guess I didn't realize it. Yes, I think we're all in different groups. I think that there are certain groups that bring out the best in people. There's some that just intimidate the dickens out of people. And you wonder if, all right, am I going to fit? Do I really want to fit? Because I'll tell you, when you read about leader member exchange theory, I'd like to see that back into this, put some of this chapter, because do you want to be in an in group or an out group? You know what? I think we do choose, but I didn't realize how much power we have as people. And that sometimes when you don't do something because you don't think, oh, I'm not sure how it's going to go. Nah, I've just done it now. The older I'm getting, the more I realize, you know what? I sometimes made artificial stuff in my own mind that I really just have to move ahead because it was. And that's one of the things that I like the doc brought up. He brought up you got to do the right thing. And you know what? I think there are times when we don't. You're always clashing against, there's always going to be cultures that are defined differently than what we want to see them. And we're going to have to figure out, how do you change that culture? How do you open it up to show that there are more voices that should have been heard and something's not right here? And yeah, I think one of the things that I really like that he talked about is it really comes down to you. And yeah, sometimes I just don't think we've utilized power like we could have, should have. And maybe that's why people's voices aren't listened to. I've almost wondered because, I totally agree. The West Coast and East Coast, oh my gosh, so much more embracing. Now, what the heck happened to the Midwest? What is this goofiness? And why do we have to have somebody who's more powerful than others? And yeah, your examples are right on the mark, because it's just like, really? Why do we do this stuff? And who's going to be the one who stops it? To me, that's probably the more important part of this. Because it's one thing to go on and allow something when you, because I agree with you, Nikki, that you have to reach out and you have to ask people. And then we have to do things based upon what we ask. Because sometimes if we don't do that part of it, all right, I lost another opportunity for change. And really, can we afford that? I don't think we really can anymore. I guess so. The more and more I listen, the more and more I read, the more and more I realize I don't know it all. There's so much more out there that I really need to open up and listen to people that are very different, that bring from different industries, different backgrounds. Why? That might be the best teacher. And maybe that's how we change what's happening, is we look at each other as being the teacher, because we don't know it all. I think if anything that I got out of tonight, you look at for this inclusive leadership class and you look at your projects, there are a lot of ideas. And maybe it is just being willing to really look at them or listen to them. I didn't mean to take over here, but I just think that there's huge opportunities. I just think there's a lot of good things in life. And there are a lot of really good people. And you're right, because I listen to everybody in their different workplaces and everything that we deal with. You don't stop. I think there's always things that we can be doing. Maybe we haven't figured it out right. And maybe like a Nikki, when you're talking about how do you go about reconnecting, I give you credit because you don't stop. And maybe that is what it takes. I don't know. Anybody have any last words? Words of wisdom?
Just to piggyback on one of the things Craig said, I know Doc, what I had asked Doc about, how do you try to endear people to you over somewhere else? And I said, I was asking that, and he said more money. And then I said food. And I think Craig kind of proved that to me about the free pizza in New York. So other than that, thank you. It was a good discussion. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
Have a good rest of the day.
You're welcome, everyone. Take care, everyone. Good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, guys.